You row for 2 hours, you sleep for 2 hours. You row for 2 hours, you sleep for 2 hours. You row for 2 hours, you sleep for 2 hours. You row for 2 hours, you sleep for 2 hours. All day, all night, for over a month. It's unsupported, so you carry your own food, you make your water with a desalinator, and yes, we go to the loo in front of each other. So if that's the plan, I needed a crew. So I scoured the internet for somebody to join me. And I found a stranger who posted that he needed a crew of 10 people to set the world record, which immediately caught my imagination. Now, usually, finding a stranger on the internet is a bad idea. But in this case, it was a terrible idea. A couple of red flags, so I gave them a proper Google, and I found articles going back to the 90s, a bit like this one. Captain Calamity's latest rowing bid wiped out by a wave. Well, I was expecting a wave or two. But at this point, I was already so emotionally invested, let alone financially invested, that I was happy to rationalize away anything that didn't confirm that we were going to set the world record. This was just journalists trying to shift newspaper, headline-grabbing, clickbait journalists. An amazing delusion, given I am a journalist. It set the precedent. I was happy to rationalize away a number of red flags that we all saw as a crew, until finally the day came where we departed shore. Despite these misgivings, the day we pulled out from the harbour was immense. This weight just lifted off my shoulders, and I realized the simplicity of what we were about to embark on. No emails, deadlines, no existential crises about what you're doing with your life, no bosses, just get from A to B. Simple. So the first 2 days went great. Then into the second night, a storm kicked up around us, and these huge swells are rolling in. Now, swells aren't like waves. Swells are these mountains of water that roll in from 1,000 miles away across the Atlantic. And by the time they reached us, they towered over our small ocean rowing boat. When you're in between two of these mountains, it's pitch black, and not dark in the sense that there's a lack of light. It felt to me like the surface of the water was sucking the light out of the air, making it even darker. And then in the next minute, you slowly move onto the top of the oncoming swell. As far as you can see, these watery mountains are rolling towards you. And the moon, when it's the only light, is so bright it casts a shadow behind each of us. And it was exciting and exhilarating, but not in an adrenaline rush kind of way. I felt this immense contentment. This is what I'd signed up for. To be in the midst of nature in all its power, moving under my own power, was amazing. But that contentment didn't mean I was oblivious to what was going on around me. And what was going on around me was the boat was utterly unseaworthy. The red flags that we'd chosen to ignore were coming to fruition. In particular, the back cabins, they weren't watertight. The waves were coming over the back and filling them up. So the guys who were sleeping in them were rowing for 2 hours and sleeping in 2 or 3 inches of water. It was sapping their energy. They were getting hypothermic. One guy in particular, his condition was deteriorating. And because of this boat, the trust we put in Captain Calamity, we had to call for a helicopter in the morning. And just a few hours after sunrise, he came to pick us up. I dismissed those Captain Calamity headlines as journalists trying to get clicks. And now, barely 40 or so hours into our expedition, and I was in the Captain Calamity headline. I wanted to be Mark the adventurer. Now I wasn't that. Who was I? Pathetic. That's what my internal monologue told me. Pathetic. I wanted to be like Ernest Shackleton, who survived on the Antarctic sea ice, or Janine Barrett, who overcame so many barriers to be the first woman to sail around the world, and Mark Agnew, one obstacle, giving up, taking the excuse. Pathetic. But after a while, I realized that I was going to have to do something to drag myself out of this hole. I couldn't wait time to heal this wound. So I started obsessively researching about resilience. And the first thing that struck me was resilience is about perspective. It's about having memories to draw on. I overcame that, I can overcome this. If I reframed my first failure, I bounced back immediately. I wanted to get back on the boat, and I started planning the next expedition. That was a sign of resilience, and just knowing that brought my life back onto an even keel, slightly. But what struck me as more profound was resilience can be trained. It is a skill. It is a mental strength, and all strength can be trained. If you want bigger, stronger muscles, you lift weights until they get sore, they get under stress, they rip, and they grow back stronger. well, why couldn't I do the same for my mind?